veterans, thank you again, because we know freedom is not free, and you have done your job, and we appreciate that. We really would like to introduce Ron Parrish. Ron has been with Mystic Saddle at the Galena. He's been with Mystic Saddle the first time up here. How many years ago?
5 now.
Yeah.
You good?
And so Ron is going to give us some cowboy poetry that speaks right from the heart. Talks about lifelong feelings, lifelong tales. Ron's going to tell you a little bit about himself, maybe, even though he likes to break right into his little jingle. And of course, he's got an accomplished guitar player right here, our boss lady. And anyway, on behalf of all of us, let's give Ron a big hand.
Thank you. Been at this stuff for a little while. Wrote the first poetry back in 1989 while I was working for Mystic Saddle Ranch in a totally different capacity. Was a part-time guide for Jeff and Deb for 13 years with archery hunters primarily and rifle hunters, and had some neat stuff happen, and decided one night I stayed at the end of the season, had 3 days left in the archery season, and I stayed up with a pencil about that long and an old grocery sack and wrote the first poem that I have ever done, cowboy poetry type venue. So, been riding horses for longer than anybody else in this place has been alive. So that's kind of neat, and I love it. I love them as much now as I ever have. So, special bond with them. And I would like to add my appreciation to you guys for what you do. I served in the Air Force in 69 to 71, and during that Vietnam mess, and I appreciate what you do, not only the military, but the blue line that's out there in our police departments and things as well. Firefighters, they're all in danger now, so I appreciate and love all of them. I'd like to start tonight with one that I don't do very often. It's kind of, at the time I did it the first time, it was kind of a miscarriage of justice, I thought, because I won a liar's contest with it. And I mean, this is gospel truth, folks. So, it's called the Longhorn Mule, or the Longhorn Mule. Yeah, that's what it's called. See, I told you I haven't done it very often. Fellow cowpunchers, goat ropers, bull shippers, and other liars, gather around and hear a yarn that'll stir your deepest fires. Now, the story I'm about to tell in every way is true, and I'm the only cowpoke alive can bring this tale to you. You'll know yourself I've spoke the truth the minute I get through, for I never learned in a yarn like other fellers do. So grab a chair, sit right there, loose the cinch around your girth, get comfy, cozy, warm, and dry, and judge this tale for what it's worth. I've throwed my rope in a lot of spots, valley floor to mountain steep, caught heads and heels on horse and cow. I've even roped some sheep. One sunrise ride, I roped a calf, bailed off and tossed him down. I tagged in knots and slipped the noose and stood and turned around. That's when that old cow hit me, a longhorn that weren't branded. She bounced me down that rocky draw till by the creek I finally landed. With all the stars that I was seeing, I just snuggled to the ground. My head was ringing, got real dark. But then I heard a sound. 'Twas sort of like the sound you hear when a little baby cries. I sat up to look around and could not believe my eyes. 'Cause standing there across the creek was a Jenny mule so cool, a longhorn bull, and in between was a real live longhorn mule. Across his shoulders, behind his head, he had a longhorn's brindled neck, and way back on the other end was a longhorn rump I had. Then I seen some horns was growing, there by them long mule ears. It was the strangest sight I'd seen in all my cowboy years. The rest of him was like a mule, from hooves to legs and head. I knew that old cow'd hit me hard, but I hoped I wasn't dead. Is this what heaven's like, I thought? Surely cannot be. Or is it real, I asked myself. Am I seeing what I see? I was tired, sure. I needed rest. That's just a cowhand rule. But I couldn't pry my eagle eye from that little longhorn mule. You've heard about the birds and bees, but this I swear to you, Ma Nature never told it right to that mule and Longhorn too. It all implied that she had lied, and that I can truly say. I was shocked and stunned, excited too, and then I heard him bray. It was as if he said, it's true, and I don't mind the deal. And he trotted to that Jenny mule and enjoyed his midday meal. They was getting antsy with me there. So I thought a picture would be swell. I crawled over to my... They was getting antsy with me there, real nervous, I could tell. Crawled over to my... Well, never mind. Anyway, a picture would be swell. Crawled over to my saddlebag upon my mule. This picture'd make me famous. That's a paparazzi rule. You guys would buy round after round to toast this marvelous trick. But as I snapped that money shot, I woke up in the creek. I was so dazed and confused, had a big bump up in my hair. I hit... How did these creatures I had found vanish in thin air? Ain't no tracks, ain't no dust. It's a sure enough mystery. I need to go get my damn book. Inspiration book. I don't talk like that. Ain't no tracks, ain't no dust. It's a sure enough mystery. They was here, but now they're gone. It beats the heck out of me. Anyway, I'll have to draw you a picture, I guess, because all my film got wet. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's awesome.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. Holy cow.
Let's start with one I think I know. Cowboy's home is his castle. If a cowboy's home is his castle, well, I guess I'm royalty, because I've got a crown and scepter, and some armor fit for me. It's quite a story, friends. If you've time, this tale I'll share. It happened not too far from here in the Cottonwood Canyon air. I was hired by the box bar to ride their southern place, about 10 sections of sage and sand, clean air and open space. Deer feed in the brushy draws, and coyotes daily sing. Cottontails and jacks run, quail and sage hen take the wing. Several stands of quakies mark the flow of little creeks. By one set stands a cabin, our home for future weeks. A wagon track runs past the place, out a good stone's throw. Our neighbors Gus and Nate take it, when off to town they go. My bride, dear Meg, was not impressed when first she spied the place. She stood on the porch and... Are you kidding me? She stood upon the porch with a frown upon her face, and after glaring back at me, she pushed in on the door and screamed as snakes and pack rats scurried across that floor. Sure enough, it needed work. You could throw a cat out through the cracks. Next morning when I rode off, she was glaring at my back. She fixed the cracks around the windows with mud from the creek, and though it never looked too good, it sure did do the trick. She tried in many ways to fix the crack beneath the door, but she couldn't get her done, short of nailing boards onto the floor. She rigged a rope and bucket so we could have a shower, heated water on the cook stove, because we never had no power. One evening I rode in from working hard for hours. Meg, she had the water hot so I could take a shower. I just stepped in and lathered up my body and my hair when her blood-curdling scream sent me flying out of there. Turn this over to you. I tore across the bedroom, wiping soap out of my eyes, trying hard to see her and follow in her cries. She must be in the kitchen, I thought, fixing stuff to eat. Soap stinging my eyeballs, never saw blue beneath my feet. Well, he tripped me like a well-heeled steer, and I slid upon my belly. Her screams are ringing in my ears, turning my blood to jelly. "Snake!" she shrieked, shaking bad. "Came in through the crack." I scrambled up to try to run, but slipped and fell upon my back. Few things in nature will make my courage small, like a snake of any kind, so I rolled over there to crawl. Well, she's up on the table, and she's about to come unglued. The dog run up behind me, slipped in the soap, and I guess that I got blued. When his cold nose hit my dangle just below my rounded rump, I guess I screamed, "I'm snake bit!" and fell down in the swamp. Well, Meg said she tried to help me, but I looked so out of sorts. She was still up on that table when she heard them horses snort, and she vaulted from her table haven across my form prostrate and flogged her out the kitchen door toward old Gus and Nate. Well, they finally got her calmed down. There were stories she could tell, but I was snake bit on my buttocks and maybe died and fell. "You gotta suck the poison out," she sobbed. She led them in to see, but they scratched and loud as how I was probably dead while they was looking down at me. Then Gus grabbed me around the ankles and Nate got me around the chest, told Maggie felt a heartbeat and said they'd do their best to save me from more harm, so they commenced to pack. Then Meg screamed, "There's that snake right behind your back!" Well, Gus and Nate, turns out, never hung around to see. They just throwed what they's packing. What they's packing is me. Well, that's how I got my crown and scepter and this armor fit, because I cracked my skull and broke my leg when on that floor I lit. I use this bandage as my crown and the crux is my scepter. I might use it on my darling Meg if ever I could catch her. And Meg says she's never going back. The thought of snakes just makes her weak. But I don't. When I remind her about the good times we had, she gets too mad to speak. But I don't think they's poisonous. Besides, that's a good job and I ain't no fool. Doc, he never found no snake bite, just a bunch of hound dog drool. I'm going to turn it over to somebody with talent.
Good job, Ron.
Down south to the land of pines, on my way, God, I see headlights. Snake down the coast in 17 ounce, picking me a bouquet on the dogwood flowers. I'm hoping for rally, I can see my baby tonight. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, anyway you please. Hey, mama, rock. Rock me, mama, like wind in the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Make me, mama, rock. Well, I'm running from the cold, up in the wind. And I was born to be a fiddler in an old-time string band. My baby plays the guitar, I play the banjo now. In the north country, winters keep forgetting me. And I lost my mother playing poker, so I had to run away. But I ain't turning back, living that old life no more. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, anyway. Mama, rock. Rock me, mama, like a wind in the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Mama, rock. Came from the south, out of Roanoke, got a trucker out of Philly, had a nice long tow. He's headed west for the Cumberland Gap, for Johnson's East, Tennessee. And I gotta get a move on before the sun. I need my baby on my knee. I know you're the only one, and if I die rapid, at least I will die free. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, anyway. Mama, rock. Rock me, mama, like a wind in the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Mama, rock. Rock me, mama, like a wind in the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Mama, rock. Mama, rock. You're sitting there on your mama's feet, talking about everything under the moon with the smell of honeysuckle. You're all I could think about was my next move. Over you were so shy, so maybe that's why it's so hard to believe when you smiled and said to me, "You gonna kiss me or not? Are we gonna do this or what?" You know I like you a lot, but you're about to miss your shot. You gonna kiss me or not? It was the best damn kiss that I ever had, except for that long one after that. And I knew if I wanted this thing to last, sooner or later I'd have to ask, what do you bought a wedding band and I got down on one knee. Then you smiled and said to me, you gonna kiss me or not? Are we gonna do this or what? I think you know I love you a lot. I think we had a real good shot. You gonna kiss me or not? So we planned it all out for the picture, from the wedding cake to the honeymoon, and your mama cried when we walked down the aisle. Then the preacher man said, say I do, and I did, and you did too. Then lifted that veil and saw your pretty smile, and I said, are you gonna kiss me or not? Are we gonna do this or what? Look at all this love that we've got. No, it's never gonna stop. You gonna kiss me or not? You gonna kiss me or not?
We kind of worked out this little trade thing that you've gone from the sublime of the kiss to a whole different aspect of it. I wrote this for my son, who had been working for Mystic Saddle Ranch, packing into the sawtooth, and he'd been at it for about 16 days straight. And as a joke, I just kind of asked him how his love life was. And of course, he told me exactly how it was. So I sat down and wrote this one to show him that things could be a little bit different. It's called A Lonely Cowboy's Kiss. And please let me get through it. Get down on my knees to this altar here. Lonely Cowboy's Kiss. I was up around at sunup, as cowboys mostly are. Coffee pot was perking and there's sourdough in the jar. It was all I had for fixins till I could get to town. Poured myself a mugful and quickly set her down. Someone or something had moved out by that cedar tree. I walked over to my door to see what it might be. My place is somewhat lonely, far off the beaten track. Isn't much to look upon, step above a shack. Barn is built from leaning wood, corrals is too, I guess. The yard is gone to weed and the fences is a mess. Cows I have, horses too. It is a motley bunch. To upgrade is my dream, soon to shed the money crunch. 'Tis a place of culls and strays, lost in life and fate. That's why I was so amazed she'd wandered through my gate. I rarely had me visitors, and never one so fine. I looked her over end to end, studied every line. Her long legs were gently curved, her head and neck so proud. Hers was the rarest beauty, she'd stand out in a crowd. My eyes caressed her rear, and the fullness of her hip. My gaze it lingered everywhere, and cast to both her lips. Reddish hair curled around her ears and framed that perfect face. She was the finest this cowboy'd seen on anybody's place. I vowed right then I'd win her. I had to make her mine. Walked on out to greet her and hoped to spend some time. She was so young and innocent. I saw that clearly in her eyes, and in my heart she was branded, mine to show the guys. Offered up the house and yard, but she never bought the play. Tossed her head and chose the barn. She bunked out in the hay. And so the days quickly passed. I filled her every need. It wasn't nothing especially tough, just a cowboy's creed. For it is unwritten law that we must be polite and see that strays or strangers are sheltered for the night. She took to hanging round the yard, came when food was spread. I never pushed her. I'd play it cool. I'd see just where it led. As time passed, I was growing closer. I touched her more than once. It wasn't much, it would have to do till I could touch her bunch. One day I moseyed to the barn and knelt there in the shade. She slowly sauntered over. I thought I had it made. My limbs were so weak and my pulse was just a pounding. How could she stand so quiet, the way my heart's a-sounding? Our heads were nearly touching. Our breath was mixing there. I slowly reached and ran my fingers through her hair. My mouth was hanging open. My lips were hard and dry. Ran my tongue across them. It was moisture for this guy. What happened next is a blur. I'd like not to recall. Her tongue and mine were all entwined, and it nearly made me fall. I choked and gagged for sure, and I'm here to tell you now, never ever let yourself get French kissed by a cow. That's disgusting. that postcard with the cow that's got its tongue clear up its nostril? That's what I think about when I do that poem. Kind of the ridiculous to one that for me is the all-time favorite. I'd done a cowboy poetry presentation better than this one, by the way, in Pocatello, and I guess subliminally this registered with me, but it started going through my head about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got up, sat in a lot in a recliner, and took about 25 minutes to write it, and haven't changed a word in it since. It's called Anytime and Anyhow, and it's about imagination, about families, and how all of it works together. The sun was losing its battle as the coyotes began their song when he rode across my yard and he was flogging that horse along. There's something about that rider that spoke of deja vu. I caught a glimpse of the past, and maybe you will too. He reined in there beside me and rubbed his horse's ears. I nodded and said, "Howdy," as I eyed his cowboy gear. His hat was folded up, held on with stampede strings. Was the first that I saw of several familiar things. "It's quite a Stetson you got there, son. How'd you come by it?" "I took this from a rustler," he said. "I know it don't quite fit. Think I had one like it," I replied, "hanging behind my door. Only use it at certain times, so it hardly ever gets wore." He watched my eyes move down his frame and settle on his vest. He said, "I took this from a gambler when I wore a star upon my chest. He cheated. I caught him. Hauled him off to jail. I can catch any crook alive," he bragged, "and I never ever fail." "Your chaps are dandies," I remarked. "Had some like them, I think, though yours fit you like shotguns and mine were cowboy chinks." "Yeah," he said, "these are good ones. Got them from an old cowpoke. They're wattled on the bottom and they smell like branded smoke, but they work fine for me when I'm riding on the range. 'Cause I'm a cowhand now," he said, though his story sounded strange. His horse was getting restless and it spun a time or two. Seen a flash of black and caught a flash of blue. Toes of those colored boots neath those shafts were curled up like skis. Heels were worn and run over, but the leather looked soft as a breeze. Dust was settling around us from the ruckus of his horse, but I couldn't leave that gear alone, so I carried on, of course. "Those boots are pretty fancy for cowhand work, I'd say. Boots like that don't come cheap. About a year of cowhand pay." "I took these from a killer," he whispered, "that I put in old Boot Hill. He's robbed and shot his last banker, the last he ever will." I looked down at his mount and thought, I'm not one to hide, so I'll go ahead and ask him where he got that horse to ride. He said he'd roped him in the Badlands and he'd broke him all alone, and they'd be together always, till to heaven one went home. "Son," I said, "you've done a lot of stuff for a man of your few years. Been a lawman chasing crooks and a cowhand chasing steers. And you got yourself an outfit from some pretty bad old men. And I know it's not polite out west, but I'll ask you once again. How'd you come to do so much? Gotta be a lesson there for all us normal cowboys with normal cowboy gear. So what then can you tell me about all this stuff you got?" Strange look crossed his eyes, like there's something he'd forgot. He spun that horse around. He lit out for the gate, hollered, "Grandma said the supper's on. Grandpa, now we're late." And he flogged that old stick horse I'd made until he threw it on the ground. My rustler's hat flew from his head and settled on its crown, while the gambler's vest I'd bought was discarded by the wall, and my wattled smoky shaft slipped down and made that cowhand fall. He skinned his hands pretty bad as he slid plumb out of my old boots. I scooped him up and kissed his tears and blessed my cowboy roots. 'Cause he was just like me. I'd done the same dang stuff, but my grandpa used to kick my butt, though he never kicked it rough. And I knew that I was loved then, as I so love mine now. And they can wear my cowboy gear anytime and anyhow. Well, I throwed him on my shoulders, and he spurred me for the door. And when he reined me in up there, a grin is what he wore. And there's something about that rider that's oh so fresh and new. And I've caught a glimpse of the past, or of the future, and I hope that you have too. The thing I've learned about this is our ancestors give a man his roots. But your life gets real special when them little ones come. to fill in your old cowboy boots.
I'm gonna do one that I wrote. I just call it the saddle song. We'll do, you know, in the summertime, a lot of 20-mile days, and we spend a lot of time riding. And some of the people, they just like to talk and play games, and I'm actually pretty happy just sitting and thinking and spending a lot of time just processing and thinking up songs or rhymes and thinking about the country and imagining what it looked like before anyone ever else saw it, or you know what it'll look like in the future. And so this song is kind of about that, just riding. So. Dust settles in my throat. The trail ahead is where I'm going. My muscles ache, my fingers cold. My coat is warm, the saddle's on. Pass me by. While I was riding in this song, the whole world's gone insane. And I'll be riding in this song. And the good Lord calls my name. Yeah, so this one I wrote for Matt. I have a lot of really good sappy songs. Not good, but a lot of them. song can I play you, honey? What song can I sing to make you smile? What lyrics can I write down for you? What words can I arrange for you tonight? To let you know how much I care, to let you know that I'm not scared of this right or wrong. This is our adventure song. I know that it's not so easy. I know that tomorrow may never come. And the path that we're on, the choice we make can't be undone. But I've got you and you've got me. And how much more could we need on this right or wrong? This is our adventure song. Mine is a hand to hold when you're not sure, and the place to rest when you are tired, and the support you need when you feel all alone. This is our adventure. This is our adventure song. Mine is a hand to hold when you're not sure, and the place to rest when you are tired, and the support you need when you feel all alone. This is our adventure. Yeah, this is our adventure. This is our adventure song.
You know, Brian and I were talking earlier about what an incredible young lady this is. You guys, excuse me, you guys spent a week with her, and you should know, and I hope that this is a whole new page in the book that you can fill about Rebecca. Love and appreciate her.
Amen.
There's a line in that in that song that she sang a little bit ago that strikes home to most of us, these girls, and Monty, they know, and Becca knows. And it is, my horse knows the way to get me there and bring me home. And that's really how a cowboy defines faith. And that is when you're out and you have to come home when it's so black that you can't see your hand in front of your face, literally. And we've been there, haven't we? You put your faith and trust in a, quote, dumb animal, unquote. And they take you home 99 and 9/10% of the time safely. And if you're really in tune with it, you'll have a hell of a lot of fun doing it. We were on an elk hunt years ago, and my oldest grandson was there and shot his first elk, and we're coming out, and literally, I'm riding a mare that I hadn't been on before, and she was such a deadhead for the other people that had used her. And that mare turned it on that night and never missed a turn in the trail. And of course, first time up there. And I'm sitting there just laughing. And my grandson's riding right behind me. And he says, "Grandpa, what are you laughing at?" And I said, "Because this mare is filling my heart with joy. And this is how I define faith. When I just turn my life and limb over to this dumb animal and let her go wherever she wants to go and as fast as she possibly can. And it's an amazing ride. It's an amazing ride." I'd like to end tonight with one that is very special to me. It talks about the cowboy life, but all of you can substitute a veteran for the cowboy in this story. And it started, I did a performance in Boise, and one of the poems that I did mentioned Blaine Frost. How many of you know who Blaine Frost is? Blaine Frost was a world champion bull rider when he was 22 and 23 years old, and he was killed by a bull in Cheyenne. And they made the movie 8 Seconds out of his life.
Mm.
And the lady walked up to me after the performance and she said, you know, I've got a 3-year-old grandson in Indiana that has absolutely worn out the tape of 8 seconds. And he swears that a cowboy is the only thing he ever wants to be. And for some reason I asked for her name and address. I don't usually do that, but for that one I did. And on the way back to eastern Idaho, I wrote this for her, and I call it Cowboy Up, dedicated to a young boy's dream. I rode my horse up this way so I can kind of think. Took the canteen off the saddle horn and got a little drink. Cool up here on this ridge where the bobcat has his lair. I smell the chokecherry blossoms and feel a breeze move my hat. Man, it's great to be alive. And my back is stiff and sore. Either from that fence I've built or from these boots I wore. It's evening time and the work is through. I got a little done. Never get her all caught up, but hell, that's part of the fun. Cattle feeding down below, elk and deer up above. Coyote sings these mournful songs, grouse is drumming for his love. I'm thinking about a rumor heard from friends out in the Midwest. Seems like this young fella there thinks a cowboy's life is best. Well, I can't fault his thinking. Lord knows I do agree. But it ain't like the movies, boy. You can take that truth from me. I'd be the last one on this earth to try to change your mind. But son, there's stuff you need to know about this cowboy guy. We don't talk too much in words, just kind of understood. But when a cowboy gives his hand, that means his word is good. We always deal in truth, unless in fun we're swapping lies. Because if truth is your signpost, you'll never need no alibis. And our families are for loving. Cowboy trusts them all the same. Ask yourself in all you do, will it bring honor to their name? Now note I never said glory, because that's a different thing. If honor is your reason, then the glory will bring. When a cowboy takes a job, he gives worth for what he's paid. Kind of work don't matter. His best efforts always make. And a cowboy knows that ladies should be special to us all, because they bring us into life, and they comfort when we fall. So he don't allow no disrespect or impropriety, and he'll stand up for their honor with pride and dignity. And he's proud of what he does. He always strives to do his best. Considers that each day of life is just another test. And a test is what a cowboy likes, because it lengthens out his stride. Like forking bulls, as Blaine Frost did, was the measure of his life's ride. He always had a smile in time for those with a dream to share. And he lived his life in the cowboy way and proved that we can care. And we're good at tending animals. We always put them first, for God gave us dominion for their feed and for their thirst. And it's a rock-hard life we lead. We're hobbled, shod, and tethered. We give our coats to newborn calves in the cold and stormy weather. We ride in the wind and the rain, the sun, snow, or sleet, and breathe or bake our butts, our heads, our noses, and our feet. When the cry for help goes out from family, friends, or neighbors, their needs come first, though not for pay. It's just a friendly favor. And when things look the darkest, and you've bucked off, it seems, that's when you cowboy up and grab for stars and dreams. Because the only thing that I know that'll beat a cowboy back is if he gives up on himself and all those dreams he had. Now, I'm sure there's better words for all those things I say. Loyalty, love, truth, and honor. But that is the cowboy way. Well, my horse just rubbed his head on me, so I reckon it's time to go. Just one more look at this night sky. Lord, I love it so. And I turn his head down the ridge. As I settle in the rack, and I trust he knows the way back home, because I've sunk until it's blocked. Appreciate it. Now, if you take that now that you've heard it and substitute veteran to cowboy, it's all the same stuff. Love and appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, as great as it was, fortunately today is the last day of the man's kite. My boy Sprout here, beautiful horse. quick going. We're about to head back onto the Lava Lakes farm, and yeah, it's been a wonderful week. Can't miss it, or I miss it definitely for sure. We Sprout, ready to go. Gearing up, we're ready to go. Look, perfect camera that way. There's all the other horses, everything else. Ready? Yeah. All right, guys. Catch you guys in the. He's gone.